Now, from XGMF, we'd like to start the panel discussion. So first of all, I would like to, if I may, introduce the members who will be on the panel. The moderator will be from NTT Docomo, Millimeter Wave Promotion Ad Hoc, Chair, Mr. Takehiro Nakamura. Followingly, the members of the panel. From Qualcomm Japan, Millimeter Wave Promotion Ad Hoc, Vice Chair, Mr. Masakazu Shirota. From Ericsson, Director of Advanced Technologies, Asia Pacific, Mr. Christopher Price. From Nokia, Hard-on Technology Marketing, Mobile Networks, Mr. Mike Smathers. Institute for Institution Industry, Deputy Director, Digital Transformation Research Institute, Mr. Daniel Liu. From NHK Enterprise, Corporate Officer, Innovation Strategy, Mr. Tetsuya Fukuhara. So now I would like to pass over my microphone to our moderator, Mr. Nakamura. So please. So thank you very much for the kind introduction. So I would like to, without further ado, the time is rather limited, so I would like to start the panel. So the members of the panel already had been kindly introduced, but from Qualcomm, SAP, unfortunately, cannot participate. So Mr. Shirota-san is on behalf of Samsung is going to talk on behalf of Qualcomm. The other members are all that have kindly presented for a previous stage. And Mike from Nokia participating through online. Thank you for being online. So there are several questions that I have prepared previously. So I'm sorry, this is an eye chart. But the first question is, again, in terms of millimeter wave, the use cases. So what are the use cases that we can consider? And in each of your presentation, to a certain extent, use cases have been kindly introduced. But furthermore, I would like to deep dive in terms of where are the use cases that's most beneficial, or what are some of the thinking that you may have for the use cases. I would like to hear that from you. So I would like to ask Fukuhara-san some deep dive from NHK Enterprise. In the presentation, you talked about the studio, the event venue, and inclusive of that. Can you add what is enabled? If you have any recommendations for millimeter wave, please let us know. Well, thank you very much. So, yes, I must say that I have forgotten to say in my presentation, there are 2 POC studies, and without the cable, half of them, the cost will be reduced. So the initial, of course, the cost is, of course, questionable, but therefore the needs are quite high in the production field because of the cost benefit. The use cases, there are 2 use cases. And furthermore, at the end, something that we'd like to try is an event venue. I said that we have the potential of utilizing them. And in a broader spectrum, the production work and mission is going to change, entertainment production. So it's telecommunications or broadcasting, and it's delivering the contents created. Are we going to utilize the telecommunication means or broadcasting means? But that's not the area that we live in the production field. How we create the content is different. Remote production was mentioned by Daniel earlier, but on the spot, on real-time basis, the CG computer graphic could be synergized together. So the real-timeness. So it's a pipeline. When you shoot the image and then edit them and then grading them, it's not that process anymore. That style of the production content creation is now different. So from a remote location, you don't have to go to a studio to do your work. So therefore, the utilization is quite broad. and is very promising. Well, thank you very much. It is very true, Mr. Fukuhara. In each industry, we can change the norm of how we used to work. So regarding use cases, is there any other comments we can share, inclusive of Mike? Is there anything that you'd like to share? There are a lot of questions, but you don't have to answer now. But anything that you would like to say? So that's all for the use cases. The second question is a very generic question in terms of the penetration domestically, internationally. Milliwave has not reached its potential. So in terms of strategy to disseminate them much broader, what can we do? How can we do? If there are clear, of course, answer, we don't need to have this panel anymore. But in distributing this, any idea, any insight? So Milliwave, the area is still limited. The devices, of course, is not shipped. The use case is not there. So there are three areas, and of course, we have them being mentioned, and it's reflected in our white paper as well. So how are you going to break through these hindrances? So can I ask Shirota-san first of all for your comment? Yes, thank you. Shirota from Qualcomm, and I am a vice chair of the ad hoc promotion division. So I'm wearing two hats here. So, but in ad hoc, what we have been discussing in the council is that in chapter 10 of the white paper, it's been said that the most important thing is that in disseminating and promoting millimeter wave, we have to create a venue or place. What I mean by that is in terms of millimeter wave, you may have a device, but it does not connect to anything. So you cannot try them out. As Fukuhara-san said, the distribution streaming of high resolution video. We have means, we have technologies, but there's no place to connect with those high resolution content. If we do have those places or venue and people can casually utilize millimeter wave, then they can try out different things. So it's not a laboratory environment, but utilizing in public sort of a network. If that's difficult, creating a local 5G. So combining these two. And also the most important thing is that success story have to be created, and that also needs to be communicated. The use case, of course, the discussion in the panel today, it was rather short, but in the workshop today, through the presentation that's been provided, I think there is a use case. So those people who say there's no use case, there's the telecommunication company, is from the wide users, the services. There's no service available in a wide realm yet. It's not being utilized yet. But millimeter wave, so high speed, massive capacity, those use cases, of course we have those use cases, but there's no place to verify that. So again, create a place and have success experience or story. So that would help us to push the way forward for millimeter wave. That's my thinking. So any other person, any comment in order to... Oh, Mike, please.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so to all of the questions, I guess, obviously I'm a big advocate of using fixed wireless access with a dedicated CPE in the first instance. I think it's a closed, controllable ecosystem. The CPE are built for purpose, whereas mobile devices are built for all purposes. So it's better to focus while we're trying to launch successful millimeter wave with CPE and build a network. If we want then millimeter wave to move into the mobile space, then I think it's actually quite important to look after the device manufacturers and their brand. And they'll be concerned about does the end customer, are they prepared to pay extra for the millimeter wave capabilities, and how does the device perform if it's using millimeter wave, because it's probably using a lot of power, energy life, and the heat of the device and things like that all make a difference. So one of the things that we need to do to make sure millimeter wave actually moves into the mobile space eventually is to look after the way that the device is used in the network and the brand of the device manufacturers themselves.
Yeah, thank you. ありがとうございます。はい、デバイス関係。
Thank you very much, CPE. That's a very important point that you mentioned. So, any other comments from the other panel, please?
I was going to add, essentially, to replicate what's been said already. I think creating a venue where millimeter wave can play a role. As I mentioned, the NHL 30 NHL stadiums in America. It's clear when you go to NHL, you'll be using millimeter wave, and it's clear you'll have a much better experience. And there is simply value in doing that and having that there. And while I'm not going to use a mobile device all on every street with millimeter wave, there will be places where there is value in adopting and having that capability available. And that's where the experience for the phone manufacturers becomes differentiated. All of a sudden, if I'm a phone manufacturer that has millimeter wave, the experience on my device will be much better in these environments than if I didn't. So I think it's creating those venues and creating the opportunity. As I showed, there was a slide that talked about all the new millimeter wave types of devices coming out, from gaming pads to computers to IoT devices. Again, venues are really important here. IoT devices, which factories will have millimeter wave capability so that we can do millimeter wave based IoT device integration. It's very hard for me as a robot manufacturer to say I'm going to use millimeter wave if I really don't have a venue or a place where I can explore that, or technology partners to explore that with. So creating those ecosystems, I think, is also very important.
はい、ありがとうございます。
Thank you very much. Yes. Anyone else? So, Ryu-san, please.
Currently in Taiwan, the adoption of millimeter wave technology is relatively limited. But we still saw that the millimeter wave is the future. So we established a millimeter wave network at the National Theater and the Concert Hall in Taiwan. And they provide the millimeter wave network service in his outdoor plaza for the large-scale performers and require instant ultra-wide bandwidth. The case is also published by GSMA. And now, because of the millimeter wave is a licensed band in Taiwan, due to its properties, telecom operator always use millimeter wave to meet the high bandwidth needs if they in the small space with deploying private 5G network.
はい、ありがとうございます。はい。
Thank you very much. Thank you. So moving on to the next topic. And next is not just limited to millimeter wave, but 5G, including local 5G, and especially for enterprise business, it's not fully monetized. And I think this is true, not just in Japan, but this is a global level issue. So the next question is 5G, local 5G, and also millimeter wave. How can we promote the adoption of those technology in other industry? This is also rather a generic question. So how we are going to have the other industries to adopt these, maybe the roles by government or maybe by the industry, or how we are going to promote this, maybe on behalf of the different industry. Fukuhara-san, would you please talk about that? How can we make the promotion? Yes, POC was already done, and demonstration was already conducted in different vertical industries, but it's not still deployed at the social level or society level. So Fukuhara-san, would you please talk about that? Yes, thank you. Well, we are a user of those technologies, so yes, maybe have some idea. Simply stated, after POC or POC, well, maybe after POC, well, maybe the vendors and also with you, with the support by MIC, we have conducted POC. And we were able to confirm, yes, this is beneficial. This has a certain impact and there is a possibility for the commercialization. But when we are trying to commercialize, as was reported, what is the business model? You have to have the kind of budgeting plan. How do we estimate the initial capex, initial cost? And that is always coming to the table. Yes, we can reduce the OPEX, but what about the capex? How should we do with the initial investment? And that has to be justified in the production, contents production industry. And this is my personal opinion. Maybe not just one company, but multiple companies can make the investment together so that we can reduce the burden onto one company. If we are trying to overcome this huge capex, when we have to ask for the approval, it can be turned down because it's too expensive. So maybe we can have that collaboration within the vertical industry, or maybe across the vertical industry. That could be the key for wider adoption. It's not just for the purpose of the adoption. We want to use the technology. So yes, we do have the needs. So as I mentioned before, it is not the alternative, but by doing this, we can produce new type of contents. We can have the better value-added contents, and this will change the production. So this is something which we have to do. Not nice to have, but this is must have. So one more question. Yes, you talk about the cost, but in terms of the quality, would you please share your thoughts? Yes. I think, yes, I can share my thoughts. Yes, in the broadcasting industry, we have been using cables. For engineers, I think they feel that it's connected with the wires. When it comes to wireless, sometimes it can be disrupted. Maybe they have the fear that video can be disrupted. Then, well, yes, maybe the directors will have a certain direction. We want to introduce wireless, but when it comes to the production, if there's 1 second disruption, it will be a disaster. So we cannot tolerate a 1 second disruption. So maybe the mindset is also have to be qualified or cleared so that engineers may have a better understanding. So we have to really address their concerns. Yes, cost and quality. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. So now on the provider side, the vendor side opinions, I want to ask the vendor side. Well, first of all, from Nokia, Mike-san, would you please share your thoughts in terms of the cost and quality? Yes, we heard about the cost and quality, and also the cross-collaboration, cross-industry collaboration. I'm sure that Nokia is doing a lot of different collaboration. Would you please share your thoughts? Mike-san, please.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of collaboration ongoing between the network providers and the device manufacturers. And obviously, there are cost implications to implementing millimeter wave in networks and on devices, a cost that needs to be addressed by CSPs and perhaps even end customers as well. You know, in terms of, I see the question here is about what government can do also, and what comes to my mind is in China as a case study and what they've been doing there to adopt not millimeter wave, but in fact narrowband IoT as a case study, where the government has actually mandated the use of narrowband IoT in all sorts of public vehicles and environments, and as such, China has really pushed forward and taken the lead globally in narrowband IoT technology. And perhaps that's something that a government could also do for millimeter wave. If you mandate the use of millimeter wave in certain circumstances, then of course that starts to build momentum, and industry is behind it as well, because as soon as you implement a new technology, of course, then the devices and everything that comes with it will follow. So perhaps that's something that needs to happen with millimeter wave. A country needs to sort of mandate its use.
はい、非常にもう
Thank you very much for your aggressive opinion. Thank you very much. How about
Thank
you,
you.
Chris? So, as a different vendor, would you please share your thoughts?
So I take a slightly different view on how to motivate millimeter wave. I mean, I always get a little nervous when mandating industries how they should do their job is discussed. But I think the way we start to approach it from Ericsson now is rather than proof of concepts, which we've been doing for a long time on 5G and 5G technologies, we now approach proof of value activities, which is a pre-commercial integration type approach, and it often requires 3 to 4 parties to be involved: an operator, the vendors, an industry vertical, and their vendors. It's quite a complex journey. It's a little more invested, a little more complicated, and a little more difficult to manage. But what you get at the end of it is something which is pre-commercial. In other words, it's something that you could actually use in a commercial environment, which differs from a POC outcome, which is more really just trying to verify that the technology is applicable for a certain use case. I think that's a really good approach. It is a lot more work. There's a lot more engagement required from various industry groups, as I'm sure you've found. As soon as you have to start to pay for things, and as soon as you have to have a balance sheet that sort of lines up at the end of an activity, it changes the way you approach it. But that's essentially one really good way of trying to drive industry adoption forward is to bring invested groups that all have something to take away from such an activity, and then to try and do something beyond a POC, something more of a proof of value type of approach. That for us has been something that's helped, I think, take that deeper step into 5G. It's also a 5G question, not just a millimeter wave question, I think. So it's a challenging domain.
はい、ありがとうございます。池谷さん。
Thank you very much. Thank you for Ericsson and Nokia. So, blank question. Maybe the cost is an issue. So, do you think cost is going to decline?
マイク
Mike, what do you think about the cost issue, cost implication? Would it go down? 5G, millimeter wave. Do you think the cost will go down, Mike?
Yeah. I think the volume obviously will help. I mean, the cost is driven by, well, from a device perspective especially, it's driven by additional silicon and new antennas that need to go into the devices. So there are real and genuine costs behind implementing millimeter wave in phones. So it's not going to go away entirely, I don't believe. From a network point of view, of course, it's another radio. It's another frequency band, and again, that has some costs associated with it. But again, volume can help, and commitments from CSPs to roll out networks again will influence the cost of the solution at the end of the day. So the ultimate cost is not going to disappear, but volume can help. Yeah.
Okay. リスさん。
So, Jeff?
That is that the cost per bit and the energy consumption per bit constantly decreases. It constantly goes down in industry. We invest a lot of money in bringing the total cost down. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean a device will change its price, but I think we are a scale industry. So the more we deploy, the better our prices become. The more we adopt a technology, the easier it is for people to integrate that technology, and the prices generally come down per unit, as it were. I don't know.
Thank you. ありがとうございます。Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. So, Shirota-san from the chip vendor. So, please, anything, Shirota-san. Well, I must say, as Chris said, the cost is going to go down ultimately, and that's a fact. But the millimeter wave at 2020, since its inception, compared to that, it is becoming cheaper. And that is, of course, the important thing is that ecosystem. Creating an ecosystem ecosystem. And if you see a dissemination of that, the volume, the cost will go down. And what are you going with the dissemination is an issue, of course, that we're talking about. And in terms of number 3, the issue that's been highlighted, the 5G, the right understanding have to be embraced. And that's really important. So hyper expectation is not good. And with Nakano-san in Japan, we're working hard with Nakamura-san, with NTT Docomo, but right expectation, right understanding for 5G, and deepening that understanding. And then on top of that, we need to design the system. And as of now, for instance, local 5G, it's quite expensive. That's a fact. But still, the first, when local 5G was incepted, I think it's half. The equipment price is now half of their initial inception stage. So by pursuing this journey, the cost ultimately will go down. That is my understanding. So Wi-Fi, when it was launched, it was super expensive. Some of you may still remember. And now with the time, with the temporal time, are we going to wait reactively, or are we going to be proactive to do something new and taking risk, making investment, and pursue this expansion? If possible, industry as a whole, we need to take some investment on our part and try to reduce the cost as an industry as a whole. That's the direction I'm hopefully wanting to engage myself in. So can I comment? Yes, please. So I'm sorry, one thing, if I may. Well, this is Fukuhara-san. So in expanding, many of the industry have to work together collaboratively, and one company cannot reduce the cost. But doing the POC, POC, and if one of the things, the learning outcome, is that when you deploy them, implement them, who is going to offer this range of services? So running the POC, the technological system, we do the technological aspect of it, but offering to the user, it's like, what kind of base station are we going to use in camera? We don't have an integrated camera to be capable of that. So we create all of these together. And this system, who is going to control? Who's going to put the price point? And who's going to run this and operate it? So there's no operator. If there's an operator, it's not going to be offered as a service. So this end still is lacking piece. So who's going to do that is another thing that needs to be considered. Well, technical advancement is living of its own. The vendors are living of its own evolution. The cost is going down. But we have the product. But the integration of the system and the operation of that, you need to establish who's going to do the integration part and the operation part. So the local 5G, that I think is an issue, as you say, Fukuhara-san, for the end user. One-stop service. We need an entity operator to do one-stop service. So many of the companies have said that they're offering one-stop, inclusive our company, Docomo, but it's not sufficient enough, maybe. So as an industry, we need to reconsider that. So thank you for what you pointed out. So Ryu-san, Daniel, so in Taiwan, so your presentation, the private 5G in Taiwan, you're pursuing multiple different things, and that equals to multiple industry verticals. They have access, and you're pursuing your journey here. Doesn't have to be millimeter wave, but 5G, private 5G, in launching this to different verticals. What are some of the caveat or clue? Or do you have suggestion to Japan from Taiwan? We'd like to get that from you.
I think it's really different from Taiwan and Japan. In Taiwan, the government plays a really important roles in Taiwan, including consulting, compliance, and response for innovative technology. They are all from the Taiwan government to co-work with the no matter industrial association or just like Triple I's, this kind of institute. These companies should address the demand for future digital transfer. Because we believe not only cost issue is cost is not only issue that millimeter wave can let everybody use. Because we believe demand is more important than the cost. If we focus on the keep going to dig out the demand and maybe create demand from people, just like the 8K resolution streaming live streaming, we believe these kinds of application or service will enhance people adapt the millimeter wave technology. And I believe Taiwan and Japan can establish a long-term communication channel to share the experience for each other. Yes.
いやありがとうございます。Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. So, Chris?
I think if we focus on the cost of a device or the cost of an integration, we're not focusing on the right thing. The cost of a missed opportunity is the biggest concern that I have when it comes to 5G. The leaders in the global economy when it comes to 5G integration, 5G adoption, will have such an economic opportunity ahead of them when it comes to being able to deploy across a global landscape of technology-hungry humans. I mean, the potential cost of missed opportunity, I think, is my biggest concern when it comes to 5G. And I feel if we worry about how much a base station costs or how much a modem costs, we're not worrying about the right things.
ありがとうございます。
Thank you very much for that. So, Mike, so far, enterprise, virtual, any other comment? Mike, do you have anything to say?
Actually, no comment at this point. Thank you.
Okay.
So, thank you. So let us move on to the next question. So it's kind of an international sort of a landscape that we're talking about in terms of dissemination of millimeter wave. We want to expand this in Japan, but when you think about ecosystem, you have to roll out to the rest of the world. So on top of that, so dissemination of millimeter wave, what region, what country do you think have the potential? US is quite mature in millimeter, but Europe and Australia may be the area that we need to seek a higher pickup. So what are we going to do with Europe? So I would like to get some comment on that. So Europe, Australia, overseas. Chris, can I get your comment about the global uptake of this technology?
When I gave my presentation, I made the statement that millimeter wave is a component of the 5G network and that we're still in a journey towards 5G. And some markets are ahead of others and some are not as advanced. The adoption of millimeter wave in a market is best done at a point where that market consumption is starting to rise or where there is an opportunity for technology adoption, either in robotics or manufacturing or other areas. And in Europe, we certainly see the adoption in private networks, in manufacturing and other facilities. In Australia, we see exploration on the macro network and fixed wireless access, of course, which is an obvious opportunity in Australia. But that when we talked about devices and the device ecosystem, I think it was Mike that said we have to take care of the devices. There needs to be an environment where a device behaves well with millimeter wave. And I think we need to start to see that coming out. And what we see in America as a leading market, we'll start to see being adopted in other markets. And we'll start to see it becoming attractive for handsets to deploy with millimeter wave into those markets. But I think we can't measure the world against what we see in America. They were very much advanced. And we also need to understand that there may be other challenges with the 5G rollout that are occurring in different markets where millimeter wave will come eventually.
Thank you. ありがとうございます。マイクさん、いかがでしょう?
What about you, Mike? Would you please talk about the Europe? What are going to happen to the Europe?
Yeah, okay, so I mean, I agree. I mean, millimeter wave's going to be, coming different times in different markets, driven by perhaps capacity requirements and/or a differentiated service approach. In Europe, there's quite a lot of activity at the moment. In the UK, for instance, they're still debating how they're going to auction off their millimeter wave. Austria has just completed its auction, and in fact, we've just completed a millimeter wave base station for one of the Austrian operators there. So there is some appetite, and I think some latent excitement to be able to use millimeter wave, but the momentum just hasn't happened yet.
Thank you. ありがとうございます。
Thank you. But what about you? Taiwan 5G, especially private 5G, I think you are making a lot of progress. And when it comes to millimeter wave, can we accept Taiwan is going to adopt millimeter wave?
Just like what I thought before, now millimeter wave is license band in Taiwan, so only telecom operator can use this bandwidth to help them to establish the more resilient network, include the private 5G and the millimeter wave. Just like they built up the private 5G in expansion hole, they also use the sub-6 private 5G network for the main use, and they also build up the millimeter wave network, use their license band to reduce the main use for the backup. Now, I think in Taiwan, maybe few years, they will continue these situations.
ありがとうございます。
Thank you very much. So we have 5 minutes left. So maybe we'd like to say a few words or last message from each panelist. Thinking about the international collaboration, looking into the wide adoption of millimeter wave, especially expectation to Japan. What kind of roles does Japan need to play when it comes to the international collaboration, roles of Japan? This is a question to all of you. So Shirota-san, please. Yes, thank you. So I'd like to be brief. Well, Japan, in terms of the 5G, Japan has a #1 condition in terms of the frequency, availability, and also the local 5G. I think we are positioned quite good, and also we do have a great network operators in Japan as well. So under those circumstances, what do we need to do? Well, 5G. We have to put the good track of 5G. And yes, service already started, but maybe the different application which we were expecting have to be fully deployed so that we see the success stories. We need to really communicate our success stories to other countries, and also maybe collaborating with other countries such as Taiwan so that we can promote together between different countries. So we do have those pieces available in Japan, and please be aware so that you can also work on your own sector. Thank you. So next is Mike-san from Nokia. Would you please talk about international collaboration and expectation to Japan?
Yeah, okay, thank you. I'll also be brief, but I can say that from the outside looking into Japan that there is a lot of appreciation, global respect for both the CSPs and Japan as a whole, and the leadership position it's taking with millimeter wave. The world is watching. And I think that collaboration, the vendors are very keen to collaborate with the CSPs and sort of try and realize what we're actually going to do with millimeter wave and make it a success, which of course is very important as we go look to the future and 6G, which hasn't really been mentioned at all. But we're going to have to be moving up into the higher frequencies by the time 6G comes along, and so it's very important to learn some lessons already with 5G millimeter wave towards future generations of technology.
ありがとうございます。6G に向けて。
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much for looking into 6G. So, but you, Chris, please.
I would say for Japan, Japan is uniquely positioned in that it's one of the few economies in the world that has a handset vendor, a very strong industrial ecosystem. It has RAN vendors. It has data center vendors. Everything that is needed for an ecosystem to thrive and survive exists here in Japan. Japan is possibly the best positioned to drive new technologies, to lead on a international scale when it comes to the adoption and integration of 5G. There was a slide from MIC earlier that said global first, I think was the mantra, and that's exactly how we should look at it. How do we take Japanese technologies and use 5G and 5G millimeter wave as the freeway to the rest of the world to increase that footprint? Thank you.
Thank you. ありがとうございます。
Thank you very much. What about you, Do-san, please?
I think Japan is the leading company of millimeter wave technologies. And I wish we can have a regular mechanism for cross-national and cross-technology exchange focused on case technologies, the context, especially context, reasonable context of millimeter wave, will really help us to discover more must meant.
ありがとうございます。はい。
Okay, lastly, Fukuhara-san. So millimeter wave itself, maybe you may find it difficult to comment on, but if millimeter wave is going to be applied to the broadcasting or entertainment industries, how would you like to collaborate or harmonize or sell those technology to the world? Yes, thank you very much. I think as I hear all of the others' comments, well, just one word from my side. Well, millimeter wave, yes, Japan is leading millimeter wave, and that the common understanding. So that means we need to really demonstrate the international projects, including international players. We have to show the case studies, and then NHK Enterprise can be involved in this kind of project because we can bring a certain proposal from the user perspective. So I want NHK to be involved in this kind of case studies. And with our technology or with our expertise, we want to make a contribution. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yes, me and we are working in the millimeter forum or millimeter ad hoc, and maybe as a next stage, we want to think about the project. And Shirota-san, yes, we have to work together. Well, thank you very much. It's time to close, and with that, we want to close this panel session. Thank you very much to all the presenters as well as panelists. So please give them a big round of applause for their contribution to this panel session. So please give them a big round of applause. Thank you very much once again. Thank you very much to the panelists. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.